Back now to the ongoing action in the Middle East, where Iran is bracing for more strikes tonight, promised by President Trump, if Tehran does not sign a deal. Central Command says it disabled a third oil tanker violating the blockade, and that was in the Gulf of Oman today. This comes a day after U.S. forces launched retaliatory strikes on Iran after Tehran downed an American helicopter near the Strait of Hormuz. Max Gordon is live in Dubai with the latest. Max.
Hey, Kayleigh, President Trump says that another round of strikes on Iran are on the way tonight. He also says that the U.S. is looking to take over Iran's oil and gas infrastructure. Here's a post on Truth Social from earlier today saying at some point in the not too distant future, we will be taking Kharg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control of their oil and gas markets. So far, U.S. forces have struck Iran 2 nights in a row. This all kicked off after a U.S. Apache helicopter was downed by an Iranian drone. The U.S. launched so-called self-defense strikes against Iran, targeting military sites in the country. In last night's retaliation, Iran reportedly fired missiles at a U.S. airbase in Jordan and struck targets in Bahrain and Kuwait. The Kuwaiti military says 24 hostile drones have been launched from Iran toward Kuwait within the last 48 hours. The United Arab Emirates, which wasn't hit in last night's strikes, strongly condemned what they called renewed Iranian aggressive attacks. CENTCOM reporting today that they've disabled a third oil tanker trying to get around the U.S. blockade of Iran in the Gulf of Oman. The U.S. has disabled 9 non-compliant vessels and turned away 135 others since the blockade went into effect on April 13th. Now, here in the Gulf, people are just waiting to see what happens with a fresh round of strikes imminent. Kayleigh, back to you.
Max, thank you. You know, Cheryl, I want to start with you because the president said on Truth Social, we will be taking Kharg Island and other oil infrastructure, and he referenced Venezuela. That is a huge deal. Kharg Island is the Achilles heel of Iran. The oil goes through there. It would be devastating for Iran should that transpire.
90%. And that's why the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal wrote this morning that Trump needs a new Iran strategy. I think we've learned more about that strategy this morning, in particular when the president called in to Fox and Friends. A couple of things about Kharg Island. Right now, if you look at a live map of the tanks that are on Kharg Island, they're at 77% capacity. Once they hit 85%, they're shut down. That's when the erosion begins. Once any oil or gas facility starts to erode and has damage, it can be offline for a long time. I mean, if we take over Kharg Island, what I would like to see is a temporary takeover of Kharg Island. You find people within the Iranian government that you can work with. You do try to set up kind of a situation like we have with Venezuela, because taking that oil off the market would actually hurt the global energy market, the Iranian oil, to be clear. The other thing is that, you know, we talked about Project Freedom. Project Freedom was, I think, on the books for about 2 days. That is where you have U.S. military ships like the Apache helicopter overseeing tanker traffic. That's another issue. I think that you have I think the goal, in my mind, I'm hoping, and the energy market hopes this, the goal is that we have some type of situation that looks like Project Freedom. Maybe you're not calling it that. Admiral Brad Cooper has talked about that at CENTCOM. He's got a plan for how the U.S. military can be in partnership with our allies in Europe to where you have the Strait open. All of this is about getting the Strait open. Kharg Island, though, again, a very key production facility that is close to being in jeopardy.
No doubt about it. And to hear the president mention it, Harris, I know Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg has mentioned to both of us that this is something he has advocated for a long time.
Well, the bottom line is to make sure they don't get enriched uranium to the point where they can make nuclear weapons. I mean, we can't lose sight of that. And I know that that's why the president now has his eye on Kharg Island, because, yeah, you're close to that 85%. You get closer to that. But if you take it over, what you do get to see, because we're in there, and Colonel Jernigan and I were talking about this last hour, you're in their atmosphere now. You're firing on them. You also can take reconnaissance while you're in those planes. Like our military can do a whole lot at one time. So, yeah, we can go in and we can hit strategic sites, but we can also pull intel out of there from the air. And so then would you see movement, a defensive movement toward Kharg Island? That gives you more fresh targets. Look, we're fighting an enemy. Let's not be fake about it. That's what's happening. And so you fight to win. If you tell them you're going to get Kharg Island, they start to move toward Kharg Island. Now you got them. So, I mean, I think strategically in a military way, in that sense, we don't want their oil wells to be shut in. That doesn't benefit anybody. But I think that finding good actors or reasonable actors in the IRGC, if we could do that, we'd have a ceasefire deal right now. Obviously, that's not possible. And if you give them too much of an out and say, well, we'll carve out this one area for you can't do any carving. It's all or nothing, and you can't have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, and to that end, there are two options, right? A deal where you get the nuclear dust, or you go in and seize it. And now we've had 2 nights of U.S. engaging in action against Iran. It seems like the deal route and the ceasefire route is quickly crumbling.
Yeah, and one of President Trump's strengths is that he is a good faith negotiator. The problem is that Iran is not. And I think it's pretty clear here, and I think that President Trump is also sort of communicating this, is that Iran only went into these ceasefire negotiations with the hope of delaying in every single way possible. The best case scenario for Iran at this point is exactly what's been happening, which is to keep the United States involved in a sort of constant drip, drip, drip of conflict here and there. Not enough to get President Trump to send back the B-2 bombers, but just enough to get us constantly engaged without really committing to full force obliteration. And the reason that they're doing that is because they hope to run out the clock, and that if they run out the clock, the political pressure at home will be enough for President Trump to cut his losses and go home, but on their terms, not on his. And so it does seem to me that we need to get out of this middle zone. We have to commit one way or the other. We got to commit to the obliteration of the Iranian regime entirely, or we do need to go home, because right now this is the worst case scenario for the United States.
Yeah, it's week 9 of the very tenuous ceasefire, Josh.
Yeah, and to dovetail off of Kayleigh's point, too, I think what we're learning from this renewed action is that the president's not bluffing. He's shown incredible patience, and he's put diplomacy first, but he's not bluffing. If he draws the line in the sand, it's a true line in the sand, and he's going to act upon that. And all the while hoping to negotiate some sort of peace deal. But if they're not going to participate in good faith, and they're going to ignore the ceasefire and ignore the blockade, then he's going to take military action where it's required. And he's done this, I think, also while constantly being mindful of the Iranian people, and that he has constantly said that his intent is not to decimate that country entirely for the Iranian people, but he is going to take action against those leaders there if they're simply not going to participate in negotiation.
Yeah, and you're right. He's drawn a line. And the one thing I know he will not do is an Obama-era type deal. So that is something that he will not accept. So we will follow it. Could strikes happen tonight? We will let you know.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.